Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back here in Valencia. I never thought it would be easier to get here from the U.S. than from Europe, but delighted to be here. So I'm going to talk about numbers this morning. Seen a lot of visuals this morning. I'm going to talk about how do we measure all of these audiences that are now accessing the internet, and maybe even more importantly, how do we measure the effect of the advertising that's increasingly running on the internet. So I want to talk about the trends that are driving the availability of massive databases delivered in real time. I want to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of those databases because sometimes it's easy to think that if a computer is generating the number, then the number has to be correct. And I think what we're finding as we work with the internet and audience measurement, that numbers are not always what they seem. And I want to show you some evidence of that this morning. I want to talk a little bit about how you resolve some of the discrepancies or the differences between the panel measurement services and the website server data that's being generated, and make an appeal for the continued integration of these databases. I think that's the solution to the measurement challenge that we have here. So if you think about media measurement and you put it into the context of traditional media and where we are today and where we're going, traditionally media panels, whether you're talking about television measurement, print, radio, have been based upon relatively small sample sizes, maybe a few thousand. In the U.S., for example, we're measuring television with a sample size of about 15,000 households. So ideally, I think we'd all agree that we'd like to get to a situation where the data is available in real time and it's available from massive sample sizes, maybe a census. And with the availability of internet panels, we moved significantly up the dimension of size. So, for example, at comScore, we're measuring the global internet with a sample of 2 million people, orders of magnitude bigger than any kind of sample size that's been available before. Certainly not real time, but available pretty fast. But up in the corner here, you've got other databases that are available that are census and that are available in real time, and those come off of a computer somewhere. It could either be a website server or it could be the ad server that's delivering the ads. And there's been historically a debate about which set of data are correct. Is it the data coming off of the server, or is it the data coming off of the panels? And I want to this morning try to reconcile that for you. The first thing I want to highlight is an issue that is now, I think, getting acknowledged, and that's the cookie deletion problem. So just a show of hands, how many people delete their cookies off of their computers in a month? Okay, that's pretty much the percentage, maybe a little higher than what I'm going to show you. Because this problem has been addressed for years, but really hasn't been acknowledged, I don't think, properly until maybe the past year or so. So here are the companies that have done studies on the degree to which cookies are getting deleted in a month. And you can see it's a number of different companies that have done it via different methodologies. The numbers in terms of the percentage of people deleting ranges from around 30% to estimates as high as 50%. The electronic measurements that we've done, first one was in 2006. We did in the U.S. 31% of all internet users were deleting their cookies in a month. And then we repeated that study in Europe in 2009 and found that about 24% of people were deleting. So I think you'd agree if you look at the show of hands that we had, these numbers are pretty reflective of what we just saw here this morning. But there's another problem, and this is, I think, the bigger part of the problem. The issue is how many times in a month are those cookies getting deleted? And here's the results from our measurement in the U.S. and in Europe. And there are two cookies that are relevant here. There's the cookie that's put on by the website that you're visiting, and then there's a cookie that's put on by the ad server. And you can see that in a month, you get a lot of different cookies for the same site or for the same ad campaign, which means, as an example, if I'm trying to count visitors to my website and I'm counting off of cookies, 30% of the people are deleting, and they're deleting 4 times. I get 5 different cookies. I will overstate the number of unique visitors, the number of unique people, by a factor of 5 within that 30%. And that's a problem. You've got a similar problem if you're trying to count the number of people that were exposed to an ad, because the ad server, again, is basing its delivery of an ad on the cookie that it sees. If it sees a cookie that's different from the one it had before, it's going to think it's a new to be exposed person, and it's going to push out another impression. In reality, it could be delivering an impression to somebody who's already got it. So the frequency capping that's running on the internet has all kinds of problems. And fact is that we have an overstatement that's based upon this cookie deletion issue. It causes, in our measurement, an overstatement of as much as 2.5 times the count of unique visitors if you're reading that off of the website server. And you've got an overstatement of about 2.5 times of reach if you're counting the metrics of reach and frequency off of the ad server computer, and an understatement of frequency. So it's the ad server is delivering impressions to the same computer, not realizing it's the same computer. So these are issues. What we've done to try to address this is to reconcile the two databases, if you will, and to leverage the best of both worlds. So we use the panel to get people counts. We use the panel to get reach, to get demographics, duration, cross-site metrics, all of that important information. The servers are really important in terms of counting accurately the total number of pages that have been delivered. Not so good for counting the total number of unique people that have visited a website. But if you integrate the two databases and you do it correctly with the right mathematics, you will come up with the correct number of people that are visiting a website, the correct number of people that are getting exposed to an ad campaign. We've been doing this beginning in the US and then rolling it out globally, and the reaction is very, very encouraging. You see in the bottom right here, we've got 80% now of the top 50 US media properties are putting our tags or our beacons on their website server. We're up to 75% in Canada, 70% in the UK, and rolling this out globally. And I think that this will be, and these kind of unified systems will be the solution to getting the right numbers. We're doing a similar thing in mobile, and this is a service that we're running with the GSMA that was released in February in the UK, where we're taking all of the carriers, all of the mobile operators, they are giving us their log files anonymized. We integrate it then with panel data that's providing demographic information, and we come up with, again, an accurate measure of the total number of people that are accessing different parts of the internet via mobile devices. And you can see this quote here from Bob Wooten, who heads up the ISBA in the UK, very, very encouraged about the future of mobile now that we have the right metrics. Another issue that comes into play here with these census-based measurements is the click. And the click's been mentioned a number of times this morning, and I want to show you the reality of the click. The click, I think, has been responsible for the evolution of online advertising with a bias, because the bias has been towards direct response type advertising instead of a combination of direct response and branding. If you look at these data, these are US data, but the ratios that are here, I have no doubt apply to pretty much every developed country that's running advertising across different media. So on the left is the total size of the ad market in the US, branding broken out separately from direct response. So it's saying that 63% of all the ad dollars in the US go to branding advertising, and about 37% go to direct response. If you look at the numbers on the far right, that's the internet. And the internet is completely different in terms of the types of advertising that's being delivered, with 77% of the advertising being direct response and only 23% being branding. So if you look at the numbers in the middle, which is the internet's share of total, it's doing pretty well, capturing a high share of direct response dollars, 30%, but only 5% of the branding dollars. And I would lay responsibility for these biased numbers directly on the doorstep of the click. Because the click, while it maybe was relevant in the early days of the internet when it was running at a few percent, and I'm talking about display advertising, I'm not referring to search. The click rates have dropped to minimal levels, and this shows you the click rate on an individual campaign across different countries, and as you can see in Spain, it's 0.14%. So if one ever believed that the click was the relevant metric, I think the only conclusion you'd have here is that online advertising doesn't work if these are the click rates that we're seeing today. The reality is actually very, very different. And let me put these click rates into context. So say I have 1,000 people. What we're saying is, if you use the click, does one person's click out of 1,000 people effectively measure the branding impact of the other 999 people that were exposed to the same ad? And the answer is absolutely not. Why do we have the click? Because it could be measured. That's my particular theory. But not everything that can be measured matters, and so it is with the click. So I want to show you the results of the advertising measurement work that we've done at comScore, both in the US and in Europe. And we're using the comScore panel, which, as I said, is 2 million people across the world. We see all of the clickstream activity, all of the sites they visit, how long they stay there. We have their online buying. We can link using name and address to their offline buying using retailers' loyalty card data as an example. We know all of their search activity. We know all the ads that they're seeing online, whether those ads are clicked on or not. We know what video they're seeing, what video ads, and we have all their demographics. Okay? So let's take a look at a set of results here. We released these earlier in the year. It's a study called Wither the Click in Europe. And we're looking at the impact of display ads in terms of driving visitation to an advertiser's website. This is in the face of click rates of only 0.1%. The way we do it is we take all the panelists that were exposed to the ad campaign, select a balanced control group of people who didn't see the ad campaign, and then monitor them over time. And if you look at the chart on the left, it's saying that over a 3-week period from first exposure to a display campaign, the display ads were lifting site visitation by a factor of 73%. So among all the people who saw the ads, 73% more visited the advertised website within the group that saw the advertising compared to the control group. We also looked at the results during a campaign period and post-campaign period, and you can see that there's a residual impact of advertising that remains after the campaign has ended, with a 71% lift in site visitation, even when there were no ads running. So this to me is saying that display ads work like traditional advertising. They don't work immediately necessarily. They have to build up. You have to drive exposures. It has a latent impact, but it's a very significant impact. We just released 4 studies that we ran in conjunction with the Fox Interactive Networks, looking at different sectors: finance, travel, public sector, and then utilities. Here we're looking at the advertiser site reach, and then at the bottom, the degree to which the advertiser search queries were impacted. So in other words, did the display ad increase trademark search queries? And if you look at the 2 columns on the far right, you'll see the percentage point lift, in an absolute sense, and then the percentage lift. And you can see that these results are tremendous. And again, I think confirming the fact that display advertising has the impact that an advertiser wants. Here, we're looking at the effectiveness of video versus display within a single campaign. So I'm not suggesting here that these are the types of results that one would see across all campaigns, but it is an interesting illustration that video, as you might expect, is able to lift site visitation and trademark search queries by a greater amount than does display. So again, very encouraging results for display and for video advertising. Another interesting thing we found is if you compare the lifts that online advertising generates in the US to what we're seeing in Europe, we're getting higher lifts in Europe, significantly higher lifts, both in terms of the ability of advertising to drive visitors to the website of the advertised brand, as well as lift in trademark search. Why is an interesting question. I have a couple of personal theories. One is that there's probably less clutter in Europe, and so the share of voice is probably higher for the advertised brands that are running here. Some other folks have suggested that maybe the creativity and the creative in the advertising that's running is better in Europe than the US. I'll just lay that out there without any editorial comment on it. But clearly, advertising online is having a significant impact, even with minimal clicks, both in the US and in Europe.